All right, let's call the meeting to order. This is the continuation of the May public hearing on rates and the regular meeting of June. And let's call the roll.
Chairman Einhauser,
Present.
Commissioner Kinlock,
Present.
Vice Chair Blackman is excused but plans to join us. Commissioner Forte is excused but plans to join us. Commissioner Garcia. Present. Commissioner Davis
Present.
and Commissioner Coleman is absent.
So we do not have a quorum at the moment. So let's recess. We have it on good authority. There are some people on their way. All right, we have a quorum present. And so let's begin by approving the agenda. I just want to point out that we are holding public comment until after the presentation of the affordability plan, because we believe that's probably what most people are going to want to make a public comment on. And so we'll have that presentation first, and then we'll go into public comment. With that remark, what is your pleasure with regard to the agenda? It's been moved and supported. Any changes or modifications to the agenda as proposed? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, and the agenda is approved. Next, we have the minutes of May the 4th, special meeting number 18. Commissioners, what is your pleasure with regard to the minutes?
Mr. Chair, move approval with any necessary corrections.
All right. Commissioner Kinlock moves, Commissioner Blackman supports. Any modifications or changes to the minutes as proposed? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And that is approved. Now we will call back into session the May 18th public hearing regarding rates. I think there's a presentation by,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
yes,
Andrew Burnham from Stantec, who is our rate consultant, will be presenting the rate structure analysis and the proposed rates for fiscal year 23.
all right. Mr. Burnham, good morning, welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. So I do have a brief presentation to go through that will help tee up the rate discussion amongst yourself and the colleagues of the commission, as well as I think address a lot of the comments from the public as you'd indicated. So without further ado, I'd like to start going through the presentation. So if we could move to the next slide, please. Fundamentally, the rate structure that's before you today has come about through a cost of service study. And these studies are oftentimes needed for several different reasons. For this particular instance with Detroit, a formal cost allocation analysis has not been performed since bifurcation of the assets with GLEWA. And that type of a cost allocation analysis is required as part of that bifurcation agreement. Moreover, just rates generally in Michigan are required to reflect cost of service principles as established, throughout various parts of MCL codes or even through legal precedent from key court cases. But just generally speaking, within the industry, cost of service studies are really recommended to make sure that you have rates in place that are really proportional to the cost of providing service to different types of customers. And there's a number of industry best practices that have been published by groups such as the American Water Works Association and Water Environment Federation for how to establish cost of service-based rates. And that type of a process and this type of a study really helps enhance legal defensibility and transparency of just what exactly our costs are and how they go into the basis of rates that residents and businesses pay for service. So next slide, please. So the process generally is comprised of 4 discrete and manageable parts. The first is really identifying how much money we need to operate the system and cover our capital costs. And that's oftentimes referred to as the revenue requirements component. And then once we've identified how much money is needed for the system to cover its operating and capital costs and adequate reserve policies, we then look at how should those costs be allocated to in between the different types of services that we provide, water, wastewater, as well as drainage services. And once we've done that, we then take those cost of service results and identify exactly how we're going to develop a rate and charge structure comprised of fixed and variable charges to be able to recover those costs of providing the services to each of our different types of customers. And in that process, that's how we can incorporate affordability objectives and other components such as financial resiliency into that process of designing specific water rates and fee schedules that are before you today. And upon doing so, the last step is really just having a good communication process, understanding what current national and local trends are, how the results compare to some of those trends, and to have a good understanding of customer impacts to really support public-facing communication such as this and being able to engage with customers to really help them understand the basis of changes and what those impacts are. So starting with the revenue requirements for fiscal year 23, I thought this pie chart might be helpful just to generally frame what we're talking about in terms of total revenue requirements for the water and sewerage department. It's just under $500 million. And of that amount, it's about $274 million, or about 55%, is associated with wholesale expenses for water purchases as well as wastewater treatment from the Great Lakes Water Authority, or GLWA. And in addition to that, there's a number of other expenses that are not necessarily controllable. And when you look at the parts of the revenue requirement for DWSD that one could say you may have control over, such as operating and capital expenses, they're really only about 21% of the revenue requirements that we have. So it's important to have some context around our requirements for the system, and that there are a good number of those things that are not necessarily inside our direct control that we have as operating the system. So next slide, please. So when we take that revenue requirement amount and then identify how much is associated with the three primary services we provide, water, sewer, and drainage, we went through a very rigorous process of understanding costs at a department level, even individual line items, and grabbing a significant amount of information with staff, such as maintenance hours and capital improvement program details, to really make sure we had a very thorough and comprehensive understanding of your cost and what costs are associated with providing each of those three services. And given that it's been a number of years since this study has been performed, it's not surprising to see that there are some shifts and adjustments that need to be made. And in particular, in this case, we've identified a shift of about $20 million of cost from wastewater to water. That's consistent with the current trajectory of capital expenses as well. There is a small increase identified in drainage cost for the revenue requirement analysis. But as I mentioned, this part of the analysis really provides the foundation for being able to map specific costs to each of the different rate structure components that you have. Next slide, please. And so in that process, or that mapping, we take those 23 revenue requirements for our test year and first break them out between your two primary funds, the water fund and the sewer fund. And then next go through a very by the book approach, following those manuals I mentioned from the American Water Works Association and Water Environment Federation, to go through the process of identifying how each of those expenses for each of those funds are distributed by function. How much is associated with distributing the water, treating it, associated with fire protection, both public as well as private services, and then how much is associated with customers, meters, and service lines. And similarly for sewer, we go through a process of further breaking it down between how much is associated with providing wastewater services as well as drainage services, so that we could then again identify how much is associated with collection and treatment for wastewater versus customer related costs. And then as we've done that, we then are able to map each of those specific types of costs into your specific rates and fee schedules. So we'd be able to identify very clearly and transparently which types of costs are going into rate structure component, which helps us with that transparency and legal defensibility comment that I made at the very beginning. So if you go to slide 7, please, the next slide. So what we've looked at from a rate structure perspective is very consistent with what you have in place today, but we have made a couple of notable recommendations for you to consider. The first, relative to the water system, is to keep the general rate structure that you have in place today, which is comprised of fixed charges by meter size and volumetric charges, but to consider adding a base or a lifeline rate. And this would be a lower rate that applies to more essential and steady water use that occurs throughout the year, that doesn't necessarily result in higher peak demands in the summertime that necessitate investment in greater capacity or costs. And usage above that level would then be part of a uniform rate structure that would then again vary and reflect the higher peaking costs associated with those higher volumes of usage. On the wastewater side, we wanted to make sure that we had some thoughtful conversations with staff about how to handle outdoor irrigation. As presently, your current volumetric charge for wastewater service applies to all metered water use. Yet we know that in the summertime, not necessarily all that metered water use may be returning to the sewer system. And so we did identify and have recommended not necessarily changing your volumetric charge structure, but applying what volume or changing what volume that's applied to throughout the year, and using a winter average water use as the basis of your sewer billings. So I'd like to step through just a couple of the updates on the water system first, on the rate structure, just to make sure we've all got a solid foundation of that. So on the next slide.
Excuse me a minute.
Mhm.
I'd like to ask the people who are in the audience to please stop your conversation so we can hear the presentation. Thank you very much. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Burnham.
Very good. So again, going into a little bit more depth of the basis of the water rate structure, the fixed charges are really comprised of three types of costs. The first being customer service costs, and those are allocated equally across all meter sizes. So they're more a function of billing activities that aren't necessarily variable based upon the size of the meter. But then we looked at meter and service line costs, and those are actually scaled based upon the replacement costs for the different meter sizes and the attendant lines. And the third component of the fixed charges is to include a portion of the public fire protection cost associated with capital debt and legal expenses that would then be based on the hydraulic capacity or the maximum flow rates of the meter size. So again, we're trying to be very thoughtful about the specific types of costs that are included in the fixed fees and how they should be scaled based upon the size of the meters and their attendant cost and capacities. On the next slide, we'll have a quick discussion about the water volumetric rates. So as I mentioned, our recommendation is to consider adopting a new base tier, and we developed that tier looking at a typical household size of 4 and indoor water usage requirements based upon a residential end use survey conducted by the Water Research Federation. And then we confirm that amount by looking at just how much of your water use across all your customers would fall into that tier of 0.6 MCF per month. And that chart at the bottom, you can see that that blue bar represents how much use happens in tier 1 throughout all the year based on our test year billing data. You can see it's a very steady amount of use that's very consistent throughout the year. So it's really not a usage that's really, quote, peaking the system and requiring us to invest in capacities and maintain capacities associated with meeting those higher demands that happen in those summer months. And so then what we did is on the next slide, really looked at how do we develop the rates for that base rate or Lifeline tier in a new uniform rate. And so if you look at the graphic to the right, you can see that we've taken the cost of meeting those average day demands for all customers throughout the year. And that's basically reflected at the same rate in both base rate as well as the new uniform rate. The difference is in the peaking cost. And if you look at the difference in the lowest month of the year to the highest month of the year, as I mentioned, that change in volume is very low for that base rate or that first tier. So there's only a very small amount of peaking cost allocated in that first tier rate. Whereas the second tier has a significant amount of variability and volatility to it, which is contributing to those peak demands. And so there's a greater allocation of peak costs to that tier 2 rate. So again, we've established this 2-tier rate structure based on understanding of your usage profiles and also attaching that to the specific costs that we've identified through our analysis that is consistent with industry accepted practices. Relative to, if you go to the next slide, the wastewater system, we do recommend that you continue to maintain a monthly fixed charge to recover customer and related service costs. But we do recommend on the volumetric rate that you do consider applying a different basis of billing for that. The graphic at the right just shows that during the winter months, January, February, March, you can see that's when you have the lowest water usage. And we think that's an appropriate basis for billing the sewer volumetric or wastewater volumetric charges throughout the year. In fact, it's a fairly common practice to do that. And so what this approach would do is you bill customers based on the lower of their actual metered water use or their 3-month winter average for all customer classifications. However, this will represent a fairly substantial change relative to your billing system to be able to accommodate this type of customer specific calculation going forward. So in the interim, until that can be completed, we do recommend that you institute a monthly cap of 1.2 MCF for individually metered residential units and continue to use your monthly billed water use for all of their customers until such time as that average winter consumption can be implemented in the billing system, which at this time is anticipated to be for the beginning of fiscal year 24. So not this upcoming fiscal year, but the next one. So what does all this mean in terms of specific rate schedules and customer impacts? We have included specific rate schedules that show the recommended water rates as compared to the current water rates. And as you'll see on the fixed charges, we're preserving or presenting the same type of rate structure that you have today. We've just updated the dollar amounts to be reflective of those very specific cost components that I mentioned. And the biggest change for water is on the bottom box, where we now have a 2-tier rate system based upon cost differentials, again, for use that's less than or equal to 0.6 MCF per month, and then a higher rate for uniform, or the uniform tier that would be applicable to all remaining use in excess of the 0.6 MCF per month. And for wastewater, as I mentioned, we're really following a very consistent rate structure as what you have today, just updated to reflect the current cost of service results. So the customer charge is a little bit lower, and then also the volumetric rate per MCF is a little bit lower as well. The big change here will be the basis of billing those sewer charges, and initially starting with a sewer cap until we can move to an average winter consumption for all customers. In addition, we also looked at a couple of other rate structure components. We spent a lot of time evaluating your charges for private fire lines and fire protection. There's about 1,700 customers that have this additional private fire protection service. We've gone through a rather rigorous analysis to identify what those costs of that service are, and developed an updated fee schedule based on current calls for service information, as well as our current cost profile. And similarly for drainage, as I mentioned, there was a small increase in the revenue requirement for drainage, and the new rate for next fiscal year has been updated to take into account current and anticipated credit adjustments, as well as updates to build impervious area to make sure we can capture that small increase in the revenue requirement. So a very, very modest change in the drainage rate is being proposed for fiscal 23. One additional point I do want to mention, the GLEWA just on June 2nd approved changes to their industrial water control schedule. All those rates and charges increased by about 1%. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that as well. In terms of what this means to customers, just generally summarizing the rate structure changes. Again, a lot of these they're all coming from a detailed understanding of our cost of providing each of these respective services, and making sure that we can attach those to the fixed and volumetric rate structure components. And again, we've recommended a 2-tiered system for volumetric rates for water, and that the wastewater rate ultimately be applied based upon average winter consumption, effective as soon as possible with billing system testing and implementation. We do not have any substantial changes to the current drainage rate structure or the current and planned changes to credit programs. And so fundamentally, what with these changes that we've identified here with bullet points, we've looked at the estimated change in revenue by customer class, and you can see, 4 different types of customers, what impacts this has overall based upon the aggregate billings for these types of customers. So single family as a customer class would go down a little bit by 3%. Commercial would go up by about 3%. And you can see some of these respective changes. But the exact changes are going to depend on individual customers, combinations of meter size, build impervious area, as well as water use. So we have prepared a few summaries for residential customers to look at more detailed bill impacts. And so this chart here presents in increments of 0.1 MCF, what the current bill and proposed bill is for all 3 services, for water, wastewater, and drainage. And it identifies the current bill and what the proposed bill would be for fiscal 23, reflecting the water rate structure changes you've identified and the wastewater volumetric cap on the interim basis at 1.2 MCF. These bills do assume 0.05 impervious billable acres for the drainage portion of the bill. And you can see that for lower volume uses at 0.7 MCF and below, which represent about 78% of the residential bills, will actually see a reduction as a result of these rate structure changes. And that level of reduction ranges from 40 cents for bills without any volume issued to a little over $2 on those monthly bills for a more typical user on 0.6 or 0.5 MCF. And then as you look to the higher levels of usage, that's where you will see some increases as we start to get into that second tier of the new proposed volumetric rate system. But those increases, again, are fairly modest, and they do assume the current level of usage which customers may in fact, see an opportunity to enhance their conservation practices as a result of this pricing structure and maybe avoid some of those potential increases as well. We also took the opportunity to do some benchmarking, as I mentioned up front, to compare to other agencies in Michigan, as well as to some other more metropolitan areas in the Midwest, generally speaking, to look at just how does a typical residential bill in Detroit with these rate structure changes compare to the same type of bill in other communities. So for where the arrow points to on this chart is what's been proposed for DWSD for fiscal year 23. And it's being compared against the current rates for other agencies in fiscal 22. We don't know necessarily what changes in rates or likely increases they may have in fiscal 23. So this is a kind of a conservative presentation of how our bill compares to other communities. But that notwithstanding, you can still see that we're less than the average and on the lower end of the survey when you combine all three charges for services for water, wastewater, and drainage. It's very possible that agencies that don't show here as having a drainage bill are recovering those costs via some other mechanism or through their taxes. So that would be kind of an additional cost that we just couldn't identify and layer on for those agencies. So again, this is a very kind of conservative looking projection of bill comparisons that I think speaks pretty favorably to where Detroit is looking to be in fiscal 23 with these proposed rates, fees, and charges. With that, that summarizes the cost of service study and rate structure recommendations, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions or participate in discussion as might be appropriate.
All right, commissioners, any questions? And I want to make sure I heard correctly. Based on our projections, 78% of our individual ratepayers are going to see a decrease in their rates?
78% of your residential bills will in fact see a reduction ranging from about 40 cents to a little more than $2 based upon this new structure.
Okay. Commissioner Blackman.
Not a question, but a comment that I commend everyone involved in this to make sure that our customers are getting the best possible service at the lowest possible rate. And Mr. Director, you wanted to comment? That was basically what I wanted to say. A lot of work has gone into making sure we're able to treat our customers as equitably as possible and give them the best service as possible.
Absolutely. And as everyone knows, inflation is at about 8.6% today. And we have a fleet of vehicles that we put out on the street every day that are using gasoline or diesel. So you can imagine the pressure that's put on our budget. We also have utility costs. We have a facility that's more than 1 million square feet, and that's going up. And so we're not immune from the inflation that the everyday citizen is seeing today. And so I believe our revenue requirement, as was explained, is about $468 million. But it increased, the revenue requirement increased by less than 1%, by 0.8%. Rates are going up. However, 78% of our residential customers are seeing a modest decrease. And so in any business, when you can hold your revenue requirement down, you can hold costs down. And believe me, healthcare cost is going up. We have to make our pension payments. The payment that we make to Gleewood, more than $200 million, they're seeing the effects of chemicals and utility costs going up that they pass on to us. And we're able to hold the line at 0.8% with inflation at 8.6 is a good story to tell. However, we're doing it because we haven't replaced some personnel and because of bad debt, $40 million in bad debt that we weren't able to hire more people and get more work done. So while we're happy that we have a good story to tell, that we're as efficient as we've ever been. We're holding the line on cost because we know that our customers are suffering also. We know that this can't last forever. We have to get our collection rate up so that we can hire more people and get more work that is needed done. So that I just wanted to add that point, Mr. Chair, that we only increased by 0.8% revenue requirement when inflation is at 8.6.
All right, Commissioner Kinlock.
Mr. Director, I've talked to you as well as many of the commissioners and residents as a whole as it relates to the issue of the drainage fee. That seems to be something that consistently come up quite often as we move around the community, both from a residential standpoint and a business standpoint. Absolutely understand inflation and the great work that staff has done and pulling all this together and holding back the rates. What sort of relief, if any, that you have been able to, or you're able to draw from these rate proposals? What type of relief that we can, where's the, I guess, the silver in the cloud as it relates to the concerns surrounding drainage fee?
Yeah, the silver lining is that there was a very modest, a very slight increase, but we held the line. And we basically were able to negotiate a settlement with the state that allowed us to bring in some additional money and pass that on in savings to our customers in the form of having just a very modest increase in drainage charges. So the drainage charges, the water charges, the wastewater charges, this is a good story to tell.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I suppose the other number that bears repeating too is the fact that we only control 21% of our budget, that the rest of the budget are fixed costs that we really have no control over. So we're being efficient with a very small portion of our budget to accomplish holding the line.
About 96 million of our almost $70 million is what we have to use for operation and maintenance, which we control through, but salaries are going up.
Yeah.
As the board knows, we have merit increases that we're going to give our employees in July. They're very well deserved. They've been working through some tremendous hard conditions with COVID and winter conditions. And so we're glad to be able to provide a merit increase for employees, but that cost has to be factored into this budget.
All right. Hearing no other requests for questions or comments, let's close the public hearing on rates. And as I said earlier, we're going to get the presentation on the Lifeline program before we do public comment, because our sense is much of the public comment is going to be on the Lifeline program. So we'll have that presentation and then we'll open it up to public comment. Item 7, there are no communications with regard to the hearing. Are there any items from the commissioners? Hearing none, there is no unfinished business. So let's move into new business. And it is the presentation on our Lifeline plan, the DWSD affordability plan. Director Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to go to the podium and
Okay.
all righty. As the opening slide indicates this is Detroit's first water affordability plan. As most of the board knows, we've had an assistance plan in place through the Water Residential Assistance Program. We heard loud and clear from water advocates and water experts that that is not good enough. And so we're happy to be able to present Detroit's first ever water affordability plan. All right, introduction to the DWSD Lifeline plan. For the first time ever in Detroit, DWSD is introducing an income-based water affordability plan. It was developed in partnership with community advocates and water affordability experts. Advocates have long said water should be 1.8% of the average household income. The plan offers qualifying customers a fixed monthly rate that meets the standards recommended by the water affordability experts and erases past debt for good. The average Detroit household has 3 people in it. There are households with obviously with more and there are with less, but the average in the city of Detroit is 3 people. And they use between 2,300 and 3,000 gallons of water per month. We get that from our billing data. We're able to look at the meter reads and understand what the averages are. The DWSD Lifeline plan provides income-based eligible enrolled Detroiters up to 4,500 gallons of water every month at a fixed rate based on their household income. Any water used above 4,500 gallons in a month will result in a total bill higher than the fixed rate based on the amount of additional water used. The DWSD Lifeline plan has 3 tiers for qualifying households. The first tier, your monthly water, sewer, and drainage bill, if you receive SNAP or you're in the food assistance plan with the state of Michigan, if you receive those benefits and you're in the first tier, your bill will be capped at $18. And Mr. Chair, we have 40% of our households, more than 100,000 that are in that category. The second tier, about 15% of our household incomes are in this tier. If you are a low income household and don't receive SNAP or food assistance from the state of Michigan benefits, your bill will be capped at $43. If the third category or the third tier, and I'm going to try to move this, I got it. If you are a moderate income household and don't receive SNAP or food assistance from the state of Michigan, your bill will be capped at $56. The DWSD Lifeline plan is funded by regional, state, and federal dollars. The total bill will be 1.8% of the average monthly household income for each of the 3 tiers that I described earlier. This is a standard set by the community advocates and water affordability experts. The DWSD Lifeland plan starts July 1st, and we're going to encourage anyone that thinks that they qualify to call Wayne Metro and enroll. The new DWSD inclining block rate water rate that includes new Lifeline rates is in effect on August the 1st. And you heard Stantec describe that program. If you are a customer that uses 4,500 gallons or less, the Lifeline rate per CCF per month for water uses for all Detroit users will be $2 and approximately 50 cents. If you use more than 4,500 gallons, more than 6 CCFs, the rate increases to $4 and about 50 cents. With regards to the sewage rate, volume rate per CCF per month is $5 and approximately 50 cents. Expanded outreach, building an inclusive coalition of community leaders and activists to directly engage with income eligible Detroiters to, number one, 45-day comment period. Share your feedback now at www.detroitmich.gov/water. And so we're going to be able to take comments online as well as go out into the community. We're also going to educate households on the new DWSD Lifeline plan and help them enroll on the spot. We'll have employees as well as activists that will have tablets. They will go door to door and attempt to register customers on the spot. We will host DWSD Lifeline fairs. That was recommended by Hydrate Detroit, I think at one of our other meetings, to enroll qualifying households and seek feedback for possible plan improvements during the 45-day public comment period. We will continue to utilize Detroit-based and minority-owned human flyers to canvass neighborhoods by knocking on doors. If water usage goes above 4,500 gallons per month, then the water bill will reflect the charge in addition to the capped Lifeline rate. Often that's due to issues like faulty plumbing and leaky running toilets. If Governor Gretchen Whitmer approves funding, Wayne Metro will have access to $10 million per year for the next 5 years to help low-income residential customers repair leaks in their homes and keep their water usage under 4,500 gallons per month to maintain the DWSD Lifeline rate. Customers can monitor their real-time water uses through an existing mobile-friendly DWSD customer service portal. They will have access to a mobile device and/or Wi-Fi service via a collaboration with Wayne Metro and other partners. And if they allow us to, and they give us a cell number or phone number to call, we will automate calls from DWSD billing system when their usage nears 3,000 gallons. No Detroit resident will face a water shutoff if enrolled in the DWSD Lifeline plan or the 10-30-50 plan. DWSD will work with Wayne Metro and the coalition to ensure we're offering eligible Detroiters the help they need. The 2,500 households currently enrolled in the RAP program will be auto-enrolled in the new plan. Currently, we have 1,900 residents that aged out of RAP after 2 years, and we're going to allow them to restart and get back into the program. The 1,900 plus households were previously in RAP, as I stated earlier. Just gonna try to move this. There we go. We will focus on low-income neighborhoods based on our billing data and census tract information. For households at risk of a water shutoff, there will be a clear notice on DWSD bills. And Mr. Chair, understand that we received approximately $10 million from the state in the LIWOP program, and it requires that our customers be in shutoff status. And because we have a moratorium, they weren't qualified to be able to utilize those dollars. And so we have to notify our customers if a shutoff is pending in order to qualify for the $10 million to be able to make this program work. Door hanger notices with DWSD Lifeline plan. Enrollment information will also be put out. Personal outreach with sign up at your doorstep. We will give every customer 90 to 120 days in order to give us the opportunity to do the outreach effort for every customer. The DWSD Lifeline plan will help thousands of Detroit residents and has the potential to be a national model. And there's the information to call Wayne Metro along with their website to be able to enroll in the program. And with that said, Mr. Chair, I'll take my seat and then take any questions or concerns and be available for public comment, questions and concerns also.
All right, we'll take questions and comments from commissioners first, and then we'll open it up to public comment. Commissioner Garcia.
Yes, thank you, Gary. What about, and I have the mic on, so I wanted to ask, so the monitoring will be taking place from the Detroit Water Board customers, it'll be the staff. So that means, do we need extra staff for this?
We will not need additional staff for this. We will hire Human Flyers, a minority-owned small company that will also represent us out in the community. We will be working with churches to get them to sign up parishioners as they're in their buildings. And most importantly, we want to work with the advocates because we know that they know where the hard to find population that we haven't been able to find, they know where they are. And so when we go out on this 30 to 45 day listening tour in the community, we want to hear from the advocates. How do they want to participate?
So we have 19,000 people enrolled right now in the RAP program.
No, we do not. Right now, we have 2,500 enrolled currently, but since RAP's inception, there have been 19,000 residential customers that aged out of the system because the system aged out after 2 years.
2 years.
And so we're going to contact them and say, you can restart. You can get back into the program.
So would that be additional 2 years once they get back in?
That's gonna depend on the Great Lakes Water Authority board. They create the rules for the RAP program, but we create the rules for the Lifeline program. And so this board will establish the timeline.
And I think that that's very important when we look at the Wayne Metro. And I have had a lot of concerns about that as far as where our residents are. And I know it's Wayne, but I also know that the majority of the people that need assistance comes from the Metro, from Detroit. And so that's been my issue all along. As you remember, I've been asking about that monitoring for Wayne Metro for quite a while. So I just get a little concerned.
Yes.
Only that we continue or we find a method to monitor, because I don't want our community left out. That's it.
Yeah, I would suggest that we work together, the board and staff, to create metrics on this program that we can report to you on a monthly or bi-monthly basis that shows the progress. For me, the real key is how do we get from 2,500 to 20,000
Thank you.
customers in the program. That's the metric that I want to measure.
All right. Commissioner Kinlock.
Yes, Director. You've been telling us over the past few months as we continue to ask you for updates as it relates to the water rate plan, that you've been having conversations with a number of the water advocates and stakeholders regarding what you would, what in regards to what you've been considering to bring before us. My question to you is that, well, one, we did receive, the commissioners received a letter from some of the water advocates as well as some phone calls regarding some of those concerns. You've received the letter because it was addressed to you. How have you taken into consideration the comments that have come since your subsequent meetings with them? And is that impact or any changes or modification have been made or adjustments made to what you're presenting to us today?
Excellent question. And yes, there has been modification as recently as yesterday. As you know, We the People wrote us a letter that was an 11-point plan or 11 things that they wanted implemented into the plan. We had covered 8 of them. The 9th one was they believe that there should be a 30 to 45 day community outreach, water fairs to get input from the community before we vote on this plan. And I agreed with them wholeheartedly that we would do that. We would go out and do water fairs and invite them to help set them up and participate in them. Because we're looking for ways to make the plan better. The one thing that I suggested and that I didn't do was I'm recommending to this board that you should approve this today because we have $25 million and we have the opportunity tomorrow to take 2,500 customers that are in RAP and convert their bills to $18. And so we don't want to wait a couple of months to do that. But at the same time, I've assured the letter writers that wrote that letter that after the 40 days of listening session in the community, if things of value come out of that will improve this program, I will bring them back to this board and ask this or recommend to this board that they amend the current program with those changes. And so I firmly believe with the media that this plan is going to generate with the water advocates and the water experts. I've called or had conversations with Peter Hammer from Wayne State University and walked him through the plan. We'll send him the documents that you saw today from Stantec. And we're looking for the ACLU, who also we are working with regards to this plan. We're looking for recommendations that would make the plan better. We have no proprietary ownership of this plan. It should be the community's plan. And so again, we do not want to wait while we're sitting here with dollars and the ability to reduce accounts today to not do that. But at the same time, we certainly will amend. You have the ability at any point to amend the plan based on what you get, the feedback that you get from the listening session that we're going to undertake. We'll start that July 11th. We need some time to establish locations, agendas, and get our advocates on board with being a part of that. The ones that want to be a part of it, to be a part of those listening sessions. And so we'll be coming back to you in about 45 days with what we heard and with recommendations to improve the plan.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to acknowledge Commissioner Forte has joined us. Welcome, Commissioner. Yes, other comments by commissioners? Commissioner
Yeah.
Garcia.
Thank you. Gary, I think this is all great. My other issue, and I should have said it, was repairs. As you all know, some of the homes in our area are over 100 years old. And that's where a lot of our minority community lives in. And I just really feel real important to understand that, and we know what the backup is to getting repairs done. But some of the homes actually do need new piping so that they stay between that water leverage that's going to make them eligible. So is there a plan? And I know you talked about repairs, but I didn't know how much money and what time periods are we talking about? But I really think it's real important because I worry about the usage because they may only have 5 people, but some minority communities have 10 children, you know, and I know that because we experience that. So the repairs in the homes are either the leakage or whatever, which the water would keep going. So those kind of communities, we would know by monitoring them, but we also need to make sure that there's minority firms that can come right away to help repair some of these issues that they may encounter in their homes that would bring up their water leverage, you know? Thank you.
Outstanding question, yes. A lot has been made out of permanent funding for this program because we know that the dollars that we have today will not fund this program forever. We need a permanent funding source for this program. And the LIWAP program, the $10 million that we've received for that program that allows us to move forward is for a 1-year pilot program. And so it's going to be imperative that the water advocates work with us together in Lansing as well as at the federal level to ensure that we get that permanent funding in place. This program, to your point, does not work if we cannot make the repairs to get customers to an average bill. It does not work. It has to have a conservation component to it. We're cautiously optimistic that there's a document on the governor's desk and it's going to be signed. We're so optimistic that we asked Wayne Metro to start taking applications, a universal application for the program, but we're cautiously optimistic. We're going to have $10 million in October to be able to do the repairs to get customers to an average bill so that once we cap their bill, our dollars will go further in being able to help more people. But you're right. Conservation and fixing the plumbing issues, the program doesn't work without that component. You can't just give a credit or cap the rate and then have them continue to spiral because what I hope I mentioned that it was in the presentation. We're going to eliminate the arrears for good. And when you think about that, we won't need as much money in the future if we deal with the arrears, we fix the plumbing issues, we cap the monthly rate. And I'm telling you, we absolutely know that when you give low income customers a bill that they can afford to pay, $18 in this case, they will pay it. And you will collect more. And you will stop the bleeding for the last 2 years with the moratorium in place. These bills are spiraling to the point that the average homeowner will never be able to get caught up. But once we eliminate the arrears, fix the plumbing issues, cap the rates, we won't need as much money in the future because you will see that you'll get your collection rate back up to 93, 94% as we had it prior to the pandemic. And again, I can't overstress the point that if you are in one of the 2 plans, the Lifeline plan or the 1030-50, you will participate in a shut-off moratorium. You will not be shut off. You will not. All you have to do, as soon as you sign up for the plan, you go on to that list. But I think that everyone that I've talked to in the community expects people that can pay their bill to pay their bill. We have a large majority of residents that are benefiting from a moratorium right now that don't need it. And so I haven't talked to anyone that says, if you make $100,000, you need to either pay your bill or get on the 10/30/50 payment plan. Every residential customer has an opportunity not to see a service interruption if they just ask for the help. And more importantly, when you create bad debt, if you don't get into the plan, we can't get that governmental money into the utility to be able to operate and maintain the system. You have to sign up so that we can pay off your arrears and collect the dollars that we need so that we're not passing bad debt. And then finally, and I'll let you get to questions. You know, some people say, well, why don't you just pass this cost off into the rates, smooth it out through the rates? We would just exasperate the problem. I can't add $25 million into rates when you just heard 78% of your customer base is gonna qualify for some sort of subsidy. And so we can't add the dollars to rates because that would just go to the very people, low income, that we're trying to help. We have to have the advocates working with us together to apply pressure on the state and the federal government to give us permanent funding for this program. This will be a national model. We're getting calls from all over the country about this income-based affordability plan. It's not an assistance plan. And if we can show that we can execute on the plan, the funding will come, permanent funding will come. And that's the objective, is to get permanent funding. And I'll stop there and answer any more questions to me.
Commissioner Forte?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number one, I can't say enough for the direction we're heading here with affordability. Let me just say, it also means sustainability to the water department, because we all know this community needs water. And so we have to sustain our ability to provide it for all. And, I think with a moratorium, with an affordable income-based plan, this certainly strengthens and I think can set Detroit apart in terms of what we do for the community. I did have a question with respect to arrears. And my question to the director is, how will we fund arrears? I saw that, and of course, it popped out at me immediately because that is part of the sustainability piece.
That's an outstanding question. There will be an amount that will be written off if it's more than 6 years. That's been our policy for a long time. The LIWOP dollars that we have for the 1-year pilot, approximately $10 million, has to be used for arrears. It has to be used to avoid shutoffs. It's not available for monthly credits. It's written into the legislation. And so we're going to leverage several different pots of money that we have available to us. But I want everybody to understand that every pot of money that we get comes with regulation, okay? The RAP program right now, we make up the rules for that. We make up the rules. And basically we say 200% below poverty, you qualify. With the LIWOP dollars, they say no, 150%. And so we already know we have customers in RAP at 200. And so we'll have to use our RAP portion of the funding to be able to grandfather those accounts in. We'll use LIHOP dollars to be able to deal with arrears. And then we're going to use the $10 million that we're expecting to be able to do plumbing issues. And then there are 3 other pots of money, the CERA, CERA dollars that not only help with evictions, but have dollars available for utility bills. And so what I've been trying to convince EPA, I sit on the advisory board to the administrator at EPA, is there are too many restrictions on the dollars that don't allow us to leverage them in the best interest of our customers. We know our customer base and we know how to structure programs that will help them. But when you handcuff us with restrictions that don't allow us to utilize and leverage the dollars in the best manner, it's the customer that suffers. So the answer to your question is right now, the $10 million for LIWOP has to be used for arrears. And then we just got the Great Lakes Water Authority to give us an additional $2 million that they did not spend in Oakland and Macomb County for their RAP program. And in July, we will receive our new allotment of $5 million in the RAP program. And so we will leverage the different pots of money based on the sets of rules and regulations to fund this program.
Commissioner Blackman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to commend you, Director Brown, and the team, the teamwork that you have shown to work with our community partners, because I consider them partners in this effort. Not adversaries at all, because they're all interested in trying to do what's best for our customer base. So I think that's absolutely phenomenal what's been accomplished so far. My question is, you said something about the customer must be in shut-off status to be eligible. Did I misunderstand you?
It's one of the rules of the LIWOP funding, that it has to be used for arrears and they have to be in shut-off status. And so we had to go back and put that information on the bill that even though we have a moratorium,
Yes.
and that's what we were being told when we requested to be able to use the dollars, that we're sorry, the federal legislation, when the money was allocated, has that regulation in it. We can't waive it. And we're saying, well, then there's really nobody that's eligible to use the money because we have a moratorium.
Right.
And so we've got to go back and adjust that so that those dollars become available.
What concerns me is how the customer is going to react when they see that, and the tremendously increased volume of calls that would be coming into our customer service centers. Are we going to be able to handle those?
We're receiving an additional 2,000 calls, not specifically on that point, but on
Generally speaking. the whole
general
program.
points surrounding the issue. And we explain it when they call that, in order to be able to use the dollars, we have to comply because you have to give them the accounts and document where the money is going. And you have to stay within compliance or we will be subject to have to pay it back. And that would be a disaster. We don't want to do that. We want to stay in compliance. And this board is going to make sure that staff stays in compliance. You have the checks and balances in place to do that.
Thank you for all of the effort of everyone.
All right, commissioners. I have some comments, but I'm going to hold my comments and let's open up the public comment. And can we get our general instructions for public comment? Who will be delivering those?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair, I will be. Tiffany Jones, Public Affairs Team. To make a public comment today, if you are in person, please sign the sign-in sheet that's located in the general lobby area. Your name will be called and you can proceed to the microphone at that time. If you are online, Please raise your hand by using the raise hand icon on your desktop or mobile device. If you are calling into the meeting and are not online, press *9 to raise your hand. If you are online or on the phone, after your name is called, IT will give you permission to unmute, but in order to begin speaking, you will have to unmute yourself. To do so, press the unmute button, which is the microphone icon if you're online, and if you're on the phone, *6. As a reminder, you have a limit of 3 minutes to make your comment. There will be a timer indicating your time, so please be mindful of that. If you are online and you make a comment, we kindly request that you fill out the comment card link. The link is located in the chat. By filling out the card, we will have your contact information to follow up appropriately, so you do not have to state your public information online over the air. If you are unable to click the link, please let us know, and a telephone number will be provided where you can call and give us your personal information. You only have one time to make a public comment. Once the chair closes public comment, there will be no other comments from the public or the attendees, and everyone will remain muted for the duration of the meeting. Thank you for your attention, Mr. Chair.
All
Mr.
right.
Chair,
Yes,
we have about, I'd say about a dozen people in the room with us who'd like to speak, and there's about 14 online. So I don't know if you'd like to do one first, then the other, alternate. I'm here to serve.
yeah, why don't we alternate? So I have signups from, looks like almost a dozen. So let's begin with Cicely McClellan. Ms. McClellan, please come forward. How are you, ma'am?
Fine. I'd like to thank the board. My name is Cicely McClellan. I'm one of the co-founders of We the People of Detroit. We were reading a 3-part letter that we want to make aware to the community as well as to your record. As indicated on June 17th, DWSD Director Gary Brown presented an overview of the Detroit Lifeline plan in a virtual meeting where he asked for the activists and community support. We the People of Detroit supports the overall goal of reducing arrears and guaranteeing water access for all. However, before we can get behind this initiative, we ask that DWSD share the complete plan with We the People of Detroit, fellow advocates and community at large. DWSD provide a 45-day period for review and public comment before implementation. As community advocates, we have been fighting for water affordability for over a decade, which has only been met with opposition. We are quite surprised at the abrupt change in direction. Given the history of opposition, we must do diligence to confirm that the plan aligns with the community values outlined in the Michigan Water Table 10-point, now 11-point platform. We are here to share our concerns about the process, identify the key points that must be included in any water affordability plan, list the questions that must be answered as we move forward. During the meeting, activists requested access to the official document that DWSD will submit to the Water Board for approval. The Detroit City Public Affairs Director indicated that it would be shared, the plan will be shared with the community when it's presented to the Board of Water Commissioner for a vote. This approach does not meet our community engagement standard. Quite frankly, we find it unacceptable to ask for our community for our support without giving us access or time to review the complete plan we would be supporting. As indicated, the rollout of the plan was less than acceptable. Activists were provided a meeting with Wayne Metro, who did not have the plan and had very sketchy details sometime in May. We were given a PowerPoint presentation on June 17th, but no actual plan. Are the arrears going to be erased for low-income residents over 700? We need to see the real plan. What happens to low-income residents who exceed the water consumption largely due to family size and leaky plumbing? Are rates increase? Worse, do they face shutoff? We need to see the plan. The PowerPoint presentation sets the average bill at 1.8% of overall resident income. The tier 2 indicates paying $43 a month. That's $516 a year. At 11,500, which is my understanding is the lower point for that plan, that's 4.5%. So the 1.8% is not a consistent amount for all persons involved in the plan. We need to see the plan. This is a permanent funding for a plan or just a pilot, which will snap back into water shuts off when funding ends. We do agree with water is a public trust and should not be privatized and commodified, and residents must have access to clean, safe, and affordable water. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we're happy to make the We the People's letter a public document as well as DWSD's response. We can receive and file that at our next meeting.
All right, thank you very much. Let's call somebody who is participating virtually.
Mr. Mike Shane is our first speaker over the Zoom.
Mr. Shane, unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, I just unmuted myself. Well, thank you for giving me the time to speak. I've been in front of the board lately for another issue, which is lead in water. But today I want to give, I'm here in solidarity with We the People of Detroit. I have a number of concerns, though, with the plan. And I think they're embodied in some of the comments that Cecily made. I'd like to see the distribution of households that were used to determine what you call the average water consumption in the city of Detroit. I'd like to see the median and the standard distribution as well, so we know what the spread is among low-income homes. Regarding household size, I'd like to know how you determine that 3 is the average. I'm from the group Moratorium Now Coalition, and we spend time on the housing issues. And it's come to our attention that there are many homes in Detroit where slumlords will rent to 3 families, 1 home to 3 families. Each family gets 1 floor of the house, yet they share 1 water meter. How do we help those families? You may have 10, 15 or more people on 1 water line, on 1 water meter. And we need to normalize this distribution or this support so that it helps all the families, not just those that have 3 in the home, but those that have 15 in the home. Because when you have 15 in the home, you're going to easily exceed the 4,500 gallon monthly allotment. So anyway, I'd like to see the data. You know, I'm data driven based on what I've shown you on my lead analysis of water in the city water system. So please provide the data. I know Cecily is asking for that data as well. I'd like to also point out that we've been sending people over to Wayne Metro to get housing assistance and water assistance and other utility assistance. They're 6 months to 8 months behind in servicing the applicants thus far, including people who have asked for water assistance, payment assistance on their water bills. How do we cut through the red tape at Wayne Metro? I'm not happy with their performance during COVID. I think they take way too long, and we need to improve that relationship as well. One final thing, this has to do with the drainage fees. I think we can reduce the cost quite a bit on the drainage fees, remove the city streets from your method of calculating drainage fees, and put that charge onto the city of Detroit so that the lowest income folks don't have to subsidize the drainage of our streets. Anyway, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shane. Next, Narelle Hemphill. Good morning, Ms. Hemphill.
Good morning. My name is Narelle Hemphill. I'm the legal fellow from We the People of Detroit. As it relates to the community engagement standards, the approach that DWSD took during the June 17th meeting excludes community members from the opportunity to make vital input on such a critical topic that directly affects their access to water. This does nothing to build trust, where little to no trust already existed. With so much at stake, we support moving forward after a 30 to 45-day review period to give public input before it's voted on by the Board of Water Commissioners. Additionally, we submitted our proposal based upon the 11-point water affordability platform, which states that any water affordability plan adopted by the city of Detroit and the Water and Sewage Department must be detailed in writing and made available for public comment and review within at least 30 to 45-day review period in advance of the meeting, which was not given to us. As Mr. Brown stated, there were some changes made as late as yesterday. It must be committed to a long-term funding strategy, including the development of a more equitable regional rate structure. DWSD failed to provide a long-term strategy after 2 years of this proposed funding. This represents a failure of leadership amongst DWSD and GLEWA. We must establish and empower an ombudsman inside of DWSD to give oversight for this program and serve as an advocate for customers of water and wastewater services. We must guarantee that households at or below 200% of the federal poverty level are subject to income-based rates for water and wastewater services and eliminate wastewater and water service debt by households at or below the 200% of the federal poverty level. We must create a transparent structure for tracking and reviewing the program's implementation, providing community members with detailed data and information about eligible households and households reached through the program. We are still unclear about a long-term funding strategy for this proposed plan. In the interim, as a show of good faith, we suggest that DWSD and Mr. Brown immediately remove arrears for households below 200% of the federal poverty level and keep the moratorium on water shutoffs. Also, we submitted some documents to be put on the public record. We couldn't find on your website the process to do that. Can you please let us know what is the proper process to submit documents to be put on the public record for this board? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hemphill. Can we introduce somebody else participating virtually?
Yes, Mr. Russ Ballant is our next speaker via Zoom.
Mr. Ballant, welcome.
Good morning. I'm been a while since I've joined you. I'm happy to see the direction things are going, addressing the dire need for relief on water rates for our lowest income families. I think this direction is very important. I have been hoping, several years ago, I met with you and gave you a report on the rate increases from 1987 to 2019 and showing what I think is an average household usage based on my survey in my neighborhood of 7 CCF. And the rates have gone up 630% in 32 years, which averages with fixed rates, fixed charges being added, and with the compounding of rate increases, it averaged 20% a year over the last 32 years. And all of you had a chance to review that document. That says to me how critical this need is for going in this direction. And I think the lowest income groups are going to clearly benefit the most, which is what I would hope to see in a policy. I would like to see the full written policy because I intend to when this is adopted and clarified, that we have a document that we can share with our community leadership in order to engage our community and educate our community and have them participate in the enrollment plans that will bring this rate relief where it's needed. You know, we'd like something that really spells out, you know, the debt relief part. You know, is it, does it apply for debt acquired during a certain period of time, or is it all debt? Is it, you know, and also I would like to start my input on this process by saying that there's going to be larger families that need more than CCCF as their ceiling. You know, if you have 6 or 7 people in a household, you know, mostly children, obviously, they're going to use more than 6 CCF. You know, my wife and I live alone, and we use 4 to 5 CCF a month, and we relatively conserve water. We don't wash our car outside. We don't water our lawn. We conserve water. And so that's 2 per person. So I think you need to find a way to waive or do something for larger families through the application process to give them a higher ceiling than 6 CCF.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. Commissioner Kinlock?
Yes, I wanted to just say that, you know, as we're considering this and as this plan is going to be rolled out, like the director said, we absolutely, this board will be paying close attention because we have. I've received this letter, called the director, spoke with Deb, and I know other board members have called, you know, upon receiving it, and you see the adjustment was made. I think it's important for us to start this, to address this. We've been dealing with this and hearing this cry from the community for 10 years. And so this is the first step, and we absolutely are going to be listening to the public. This is too important of an issue, but this is a huge, huge step in moving in the direction of a need for this community. Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to say that with regard to the 3-minute time limit, it's my practice not to be particularly heavy with the gavel because I want people to be able to finish their point. We have almost 24 requests to speak this morning, so I'm going to be a little more strict than I usually am, and I ask you to watch the clock and try and confine your remarks to our 3 minutes. Mr. Brown?
I just, it's been referenced a couple of times that I held a Zoom meeting on the 17th and one other day. And that meeting really wasn't, it's been interpreted that that wasn't community engagement. It wasn't intended to be. The people that were invited were the water advocates. And I knew that if I came to this board with a plan, that you would ask me, had I consulted
Correct.
with the community advocates? And the answer, that was my attempt. We had 35 of them on one of the calls. We had a draft of this plan. I wanted input. And I actually, one of the things that came out of it was we want community water fairs. I agreed. And I put that in the plan. One of the things that came out is we wanted a 30 to 40 day, not cooling off period, but opportunity for the community. And I agreed, and I put that into the plan. So the point I want to make is that those 2 meetings weren't designed to be get community input. They were designed to get input from water experts. We had the ACLU on, we had Wayne State University professors on. We were trying to get as much perspective about the plan so that when I brought it to the table, I'd be able to answer your questions. And now we absolutely understand that we have to go back out to the community. And now, you know, after you take action today, we will make every document public. But I'm required to come to you before I make documents public. And
That's
so
correct.
I didn't mean any disrespect by it, but We have to come to the board, have you approve it, and now it's a public document and it will be made public. And we're eager to work with any and all groups that need additional information on how we developed the plan, and more importantly, give us input that makes the plan better so that we can make the changes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Deborah Taylor. Ms. Taylor, please come down. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Deborah Taylor, co-founder of We the People of Detroit. And I have a statement I'm supposed to read, but before I say that, I just want to say that we have not had accountability. We have not had a chance to look at the plan and a 30 to 45 day period for the community to be able to weigh in before it's approved. Once it's approved, then the horse is out of the barn and the devil is in the details. As it relates, I just want to read my statement. We, the people of Detroit, deeply holds a sense of urgency and understand that our community needs access to clean, safe, and affordable water they deserve. Yet, given our history, we have trepidation in the moment that Dwsd being honest and transparent about a solution for water affordability. Mr. Brown's plan has not been distributed to the community, nor have the water advocates had a chance to actually weigh in. As we move forward, there is a need for barrier-free communication, transparency, and genuine community inclusion. As members of the community, we demand to know what data supports the proposed rate of 6 CCFs or 4,500 gallons of access per month and payments up to 700 of arrears. How do we know that is the right level for Detroiters, particularly those with large families and with significant challenges with leaky plumbing? What led to the change of position? What steps do we take to move this from a pilot to a permanent program? Do we have the information resources needed for long-term funding strategy? There seems to be an assumption of partnership with community groups, including We the People of Detroit. What input and influence would we have on program decisions or course corrections? The horse will be out of the barn if we've been waiting for 10 plus years and working to input some of the things that he's incorporated, but the devil is in the details, and it's harder to change something after you approve it. And so I'm very concerned with this because I think it's been a smoke and mirrors dog and pony show by Mr. Brown. And we need to really have real authentic discussion back and forth. And if we're the experts, let us talk. We've listened forever and then we get 3 minutes. The other thing I want to say is none of the things that we asked for in our letter were given. We wanted oversight. We wanted accountability. We wanted to see the full plan on paper. This was a lot to digest to then just say, oh yeah, it's great. An ombudsman inside DWSD to be accountable in that way, and a comment period. And no ground was given by Mr. Brown on any of those points that we requested of any substance. And unfortunately, he has been an agent for emergency management, for the consent agreement, for the privatization of the water department. He has sold Detroiters out. And now again, he's coming as a lamb offering up like he really cares about Detroiters. And his track record does not show that.
Your time has expired. I would also like to caution members of the public, we want to hear what you have to say, and that should include complaints and criticisms.
Can't hear you, sir.
Oh, sorry. We want to hear from you, and that can include complaints and criticisms. No personal comments about any commissioner or any staff member. Thank you very much. All right.
Mr. Chair, our next speaker is Tawana Petty, who is on the Zoom.
Is it Techie? Ms. Techie?
Petty.
Petty.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Petty.
Thank you. Trust is such a fragile thing, and Detroiters are long overdue for some hope. We have witnessed decade after decade decisions that are purported to be in our best interest, infringe upon our civil liberties, human rights, and human dignity. We live in a city that somehow finds the money necessary to ramp up mass surveillance and to bail out billionaires, But when it appears to be what appears to be a consistent point of contention is when funding for the dignity of Detroiters is at issue. I'm optimistic because of the decades of work by water justice activists, including the consistent and persistent efforts of we the people of Detroit for over a decade, that things are finally moving in the right direction. Unfortunately, because community engagement is happening after the affordability vote, trust has once again been eroded. I have witnessed this type of practice in numerous city government meetings throughout my lifetime in this city. It is my prayer that DWSD will someday move past this standard practice of bait and switch so that a true water affordability plan can be implemented that the people can trust. Community engagement after implementation is not community partnership. We, the people of Detroit, has generously offered guidance for you. Please consider following it. Water affordability is a life and death matter for Detroit residents today and every day. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, may I call Valerie? I'm sorry, is it? Thank you. Valerie, please come on down. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Most of you have seen me in many of the meetings. I'd like to, first of all, thank you for allowing me to address you at this important meeting, which is the first proposed water affordability platform. What are you calling it? Adjustment meeting or something. The community should be better informed about what is going on. The advocates that have put years and years and years of hard work into this definitely need to be aware of what's going on. And it should have been presented to them prior to the all-out cry to fully fund this immediately because of the money that's associated with it. In other words, Detroiters are used to being fooled and bamboozled. If you don't believe it, just look at us retirees. I would like to say that I am a member of Hydrate Detroit, and I also fully support We the People of Detroit. I know that We the People of Detroit does. I know of their work. It's so much work that has to be done. We just can't get it all done ourselves. In other words, I'd like to ask you to not approve this at this point, that you actually wait until the people have been made aware of what's going on, that all communities are well informed, and that the advocates are fully informed about what is being proposed. I'd like to say this does seem like a step in the right direction, and I'm not certain because I haven't seen it in writing. So I'd like to say thank you very much for this opportunity, and that's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Can we get
Chair, our
the
next speaker is Beulah Walker on the Zoom.
All right. Good morning, Ms. Walker.
Hi, good morning. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to first of all thank Chair Eisenhower, Commissioner Blackman, Director Brown. Hydrate Detroit has been attending the Board of Water Commissioners meeting religiously since 2014, and we have made some serious strides in that meeting, regardless of how we have felt about each other, regardless of how many times we got put out to churches, regardless of how many court dates, PPOs, and things we have had. Hydrate Detroit has made some strides down there. A lot of information and a lot of legislation we have wrote has now become part of policies and procedures. A lot of our concerns that we have written have been met. I also want to let Chair Eisenhower know that I looked at the bylaws that the board wrote. I absolutely love them. I appreciate you writing in the bylaws that the public gets 3 minutes. That is big. Majority bodies in the city of Detroit and government don't even allow people 30 seconds. So I just want to specifically thank Chair Eisenhower for writing that in the bylaws. Even once you retire and you're gone on, I appreciate those bylaws. Also, I appreciate the bylaws being written according to Robert Rules of Order. I just want the Board of Water Commissioners to know that Hydrate Detroit is in full support of the Dwsd Lifeline plan. We have two concerns. The one concern we have is the Wayne Metro, people going through the nonprofit, and the second one is the 5-year pilot program. But I believe we can meet that going down the road. However, I'm just excited. I'm happy. Hydrate Detroit has witnessed death and destruction during these water shutoffs. And I'm just happy that we are finally coming to a means to an end. We are much better off today than we was 7 years ago. I don't know about anyone else, but I am tired of fighting. I don't want to go back to pre-COVID. I don't want to go back to the police putting us out of meetings. I think we all can fight to fix it, legislating with a pen and a paper. I believe that we all need to get behind Director Brown and write policy and legislation as Hydrate Detroit has done. Just about every person, family, Hydrate Detroit over the last 7 years have brought to the meetings. Their issues and concerns have been met. Even if Hydrate Detroit had a penny in their pocket, people walked out of that meeting with their water on. I am only speaking from the last 7 years of working with Director Brown and the Board of Water Commissioners that we have had some huge positive impact. So I just want everyone to know, the Board of Water Commissioners, Mr. Commissioner Ken Lott, Commissioner Forte, Commissioner Garcia, we have a long way to go, but we are better today than we was 7 years ago. And once again, Chair Eisenhower, I tip my hat off to you and thank you for 3 minutes. Bye.
Thank you very much, Ms. Walker. Next, may I call Sylvia Ordeño?
Greetings, Commissioners. Thank you, Chair Eisenhower.
It's
Mr. Brown.
Einhauser, but that's okay.
I apologize. And Ms. Popovich. I'm here representing both Michigan Welfare Rights Organization and the People's Water Board Coalition. And I want to start off again with some basic facts. Mr. Brown, we did not meet with you, nor did you respond to us when we told you that we were not in town after a 2 days notice to participate in that meeting on the 17th. Michigan Welfare Rights leadership began this fight back at the turn of this century. And the first water affordability program actually was passed by the City Council in 2005, and it was supported by the notorious Victor Mercado at the time. And so let's get the facts straight about where water affordability really originated. We actually had the opportunity back in 2005 to be the first city in the nation to have water affordability. And because of politics, emergency management, and the bankrupting of the city, we never got it. We're glad that we're at a point now, though, where this conversation is back on the table in a real way. But the real problem here is not so much the Lifeline program as it is this rate restructuring proposal you all have. So now you're going to change it so that all residents in the city no longer can pay one rate based on whatever amount of water they're using. But everyone is going to get a certain rate for the first amount. People who are income eligible for the program will benefit in ways that will lower their water bills. And we very much appreciate that. We're glad to see we're at this point. But to have everyone else have to pay a higher rate for more water is completely unethical. And in many concerns here is something that should not be happening. Because what we're finding out is that this city has not been adequately addressing the public health crisis. Public health is not addressed in these proposals at all, especially with the devastating impact we had here in the city of Detroit. We know too that since the 2008 mass foreclosure of housing, that we've got more than 24,000 lacking units of housing available for residents who are low income who need the housing. People have doubled and tripled up before the pandemic. It got worse during the pandemic as people's economic situations collapsed. And so what you really need to be looking at the numbers that you're providing, because they're not accurate. Saying that people only need 0.6 MCFs or approximately 37 gallons per day is inaccurate. The city of Philadelphia has been doing the same analysis for years, and they estimate 105 gallons per person. That means if you doubled or even tripled what you're saying here would be the rates for people as listed on page 9 of the proposal. When you go to page 17, it's actually going to put everyone in that orange area with the higher rates. So there is no benefit for the majority of Detroiters, and especially low-income households that have many people residing in them because they can't afford to live separately. So the numbers are flawed to begin with. And that's really the injustice here until this board looks more closely at how it is that it's going to adopt a new rate structure.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, our next speaker is Ruby Riley on the Zoom.
Ms.
Good
Riley,
morning.
good morning.
I was calling in regards to the flood that I had in 2016, and then you all redid it. And you sent me a check for $3,600 that don't cover half of what I lost. Thaw replaced my furnace. Wayne Metro replaced my hot water tank and my pipes and stuff. I froze from 16 to last year as a senior citizen. I lost property that was in my basement, including I had my stove went out on me because I had to use it to heat my house up because I didn't have no furnace in my house. My floor still hasn't been replaced. The $3,600 checks that y'all sent me is not enough for me to replace what I lost. And I'm also still going to the laundromat every 2 weeks to wash my clothes because I still don't have a washer and dryer in my home. So I would like to be made whole for what I lost due to the water company not cleaning out their drains. If they had cleaned their drains out, I would have probably never had a flood. And I was gone for a whole week. So you know what my basement looked like when I came back in a week. So like I said, I'm still spending money out of my pocket to wash. The $3,600 y'all sent, no, I didn't cash it because I'm not accepting it. When you sign something, that means you agree with what they send you. I don't agree with it. I need you all to send me, I need y'all to send me a real check. And like I said, I lost my family. My family couldn't come and visit me because my house was cold. I was freezing, covering up with all kind of covers, using stove to heat up with, buying heaters. And I have the heaters still here. If you all want to see them, I have lost heaters. My cords have burnt up because I had to use it from 2016 until you all sent. When y'all just sent Thaw, I had to get with Thaw to get a furnace in my house. And that's a shame that a senior citizen has to put up with no heat, no hot water in their house. They had to heat their water on the stove. You know, that is crazy. So I appreciate it if you all look back over that and make it a reasonable amount. Because that $3,600, the furnace was over 6 G's. So the $3,600, y'all know they didn't touch half of that. Now, I don't know what the hot water tank when Wayne Metro put it in, but it doesn't matter. I lost family. I lost time with my family. I lost clothes. I lost my grandkids, stuff that was in my basement. I lost the whole shebang bang. So I would appreciate it if you all would look back over that. And like I said, I'm constantly spending money going to the laundromat as of today to wash and dry clothes. It's not right.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Riley. I'd like to call on Valerie Blakely. Good morning, Ms. Blakely.
Good morning. I appreciate being able to make a comment today. I'm a Detroit resident, a mother, a grandmother. I also am here with the People's Water Board. And we weren't invited to the table for some reason. I don't understand why. And this is not the first water affordability plan. I'm one of the residents in 2014 who watched her entire neighborhood be shut off because we didn't have a water affordability plan and none of us could afford our water. Entire neighborhood. So it's sad to me that we're having this conversation now after so many people have been harmed. We could have did this in 2013, or we could have did it in 2005. But we're here now, and we need a water affordability plan, but it has to be right. Because once it's put into place, it's very hard to change things. Once a system is made and created, it's really hard to change things. It has to be right. I echo what all of the people have been saying. Also, witnessed in the last few years, because there's not affordable housing and because of mass tax foreclosures that followed mass water shutoffs, people are piled up in their houses. It's really, I mean, I can see it on, you can go in my neighborhood and look at every one of the houses. Their parents have moved in, their kids have moved in, people can't afford housing, so they're living, a lot of people in one home. That has to be addressed. It has to. I do appreciate the efforts and the work and that we're having this conversation now, but we've been trying to have this conversation with you all for a very, very long time. So the distrust in the room is real. It's honest, okay? I guess that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Blakely.
Mr. Chair, our next speaker is Teresa Landrum on the Zoom.
Ms. Landrum?
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. I am Teresa Landrum, and I live in Southwest Detroit 48217. We identify ourselves by our federal zip code so that we can notify the city that we're an area that has not been receiving the proper amount of information regarding anything. Today is the first time I heard about this Lifeline water plan. I am a resident that is considered now, due to inflation and high cost of all the utilities and food and gas, whatever going up, I am the retired poor. And for me to just now hear about this lifelong plan, that tells me there is a gap in receiving information or distributing information to the residents of the city of Detroit. I would like to ask this board not to approve this plan today. Give these residents the opportunity to have the information given to them, explained to them at a level that they can understand. And I'm sure that we, the original United Citizens of Southwest Detroit, which consists of more than 22 block clubs, had the information, we would be more willing to be able to make public comment in an educated manner. We would like to have the plan, see how it details out how it would include the new poor, which are the retired poor. We would also like to see a plan that details how the arrearage will not be applied to the residents' property taxes. Many of our residents are in fear of losing their home because they have had the water bill arrearage placed on their property taxes. We know there are plans in place to help assist people, but if we continue to add water bills to people's property taxes, that's only going to compound their ability to pay. So I'm just asking that this board not approve this. Give the citizens, the mass citizens of the city of Detroit, the opportunity to review it. We understand you have been working with the water warriors and the water activists. Well, how about the everyday citizen? Here we have more than 7,000 residents, and most people that I have talked to have never heard of the Lifeline plan. So give us an opportunity to review the plan and then have public comment. But why is it always that the residents get information after the plan is in place? And we're working with Wayne Metro, many of the retired poor do not qualify for water assistance because they may be $1 above the qualification or $2 above the qualification. We need a plan that will address the new line of people that will be unable to afford their water due to inflation and other rising costs. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Landrum. And I do want to make sure the record is clear. We do not put water arrearages on a property tax bill for residential customers. We don't do it. We don't do it. All right. How about Tommy? Is it Ari? Is he here?
He needs to step out. He just wants to
Oh, he stepped out. We'll call him back. Let's get the next virtual participant.
The next speaker is Tom Stevens via Zoom.
Mr. Stevens?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Okay, I see it started. Tom Stevens, Legislative Policy Divisions, Detroit City Council, and a proud supporter of the People's Water Board and we the people of Detroit and all the authentic water advocates in Detroit. This is a very exciting day. Thank you for letting me speak on this. I look forward to the engagement starting. And as to DWSD, to the extent there's any defensive reaction, just forget it. Just do the engagement. Everything that's being said, as one previous speaker said, you can tell from the comments about the history and the passion and the importance of this issue. I have three major issues for input that I'll try to touch on. One is the root cause study. Mr. Brown, you'll remember that regionalizing DWSD began with a root cause committee because I was on the staff that did the staff report for it. We need a root cause committee for how to fix this problem. All the passion about implementation and all the issues that have been raised are all important, but without getting to the root cause and figuring out exactly why GLEWA had to be started, triggered by shutting up mass water shutoffs in Detroit, we'll never fix the problem. We got to do that. That's number one. Two is GLEWA, like I just mentioned. I hope we're going to use this presentation, all the public engagement that goes on and all the work that comes out of this, and the 2 votes you got and the votes you can get on the GLEWA board to make water affordability real. That's the place where it's got to happen, I believe. Finally, if we have an authentic, collaborative, effective water affordability program, not some kind of a sideshow with handpicked public engagement and fake procedures, if we have that, we're going to know. We're not going to have to fight about it because it'll happen. And it's not going to be like what's happened in the past, the things that were done to solve the challenges in the past. It's great that GLEWA was able to save money and invest and rewrite the ship, so to speak, by getting a better interest rate. That's not the nature of the challenge we face right now. That's why we need the root cause committee. This is going to take everything we've got to overcome these challenges. I'm talking about climate and the flood in my basement. I'm talking about water affordability and clean water and all of them. And solving these problems, I'm going to leave it on a high note if we can do it. And it is possible with authentic engagement and authentic work. If we can do it, it's going to show us how to solve all other problems. So thank you everybody for all the work you put in on this for a month. It's been one of the honors of my life to be one of the people who's played some small part in this movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Is Tommy Airy here now? No. Then let's hear from Tiara Starks.
Hi, I'm Tiana Starks, Communications Director at We the People of Detroit. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak today. We appreciate Mr. Brown's response to the letter that we submitted to him and DWSD. However, as we've all indicated, we would be remiss if we did not point out that we still have some concerns regarding the DWSD Lifeline and Water Affordability Plan, as the plan has not been made available for community review or input. As we mentioned in our original letter, We the People of Detroit supports the overall goal of reducing and eliminating arrears and guaranteeing water access for all. However, before we get behind this initiative, we ask that DWSD share the complete plan with We the People of Detroit, fellow water justice advocates, and the community at large, and that DWSD provides a 30 to 45 day period for review and public comment. You all addressed our 11-point water affordability platform that we mentioned in the letter. However, you did not address the actual concerns that we requested. Our remaining concerns are as follows. The detailed Lifeline and affordability plan has yet to be made available for community review. We asked for a comment period before the plan is submitted to this board, and indicated, however, you all indicated that you would not meet this request and would move forward as you have today. We've seen no long-term funding strategy to ensure the plan's longevity. DWSD refuses to provide access to the plan, which adds to this trepidation and lack of trust. It is unclear how DWSD has established the tiered water program. We know that a tiered system in conjunction with rate-based water usage is not a true water affordability plan, as use will always increase the bill amount. Without reviewing the plan, we don't know how DWSD will address this issue. We also ask that DWSD establish an ombudsman as an internal mechanism to ensure oversight and accountability. This request was not addressed at all. We, the people of Detroit, has diligently fought for water justice and access to clean, safe, and affordable water for all Detroiters for over a decade. As we approach the finish line, we will not let up. Before we can provide our support, we ask that our concerns be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, our next speaker is Reverend Rosalind Bouye from the Brightmore Connection.
Good morning. Bouye.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Reverend Rosalind Bouye. I'm the Executive Director of the Brightmore Connection Food Pantry, and I'm also the Senior Pastor of Trinity St. Mark's United Church of Christ. As the Executive Director of the Brightmore Connection Food Pantry, I stand representing the over 3,000 households that depend upon the food pantry for food, housing, water restoration, and basic needs. Brightmore Connection sits in the third poorest community in the nation, as we all know. It's in the northwest section of Detroit, and it has had the highest population of water shutoffs, along with, of course, the highest population of COVID-19 cases. That being said, of the 3,000 households that I represent, we stand in solidarity with We the People in requesting that this vote be held until the community is allowed, and it's along with the water workers, to review and dissect the information that is in this plan. If it is a true plan, and if it is intentionally intended for the families and community, what harm does it do to hold for 30 to 45 days? Just as you have already heard, so many of my colleagues stated in advance, prior to me, that we're desperately in need of researching this. We would like the opportunity to dissect it and see what is best for community. Oftentimes, communities' voices are only listened to and cared about after the information has been handed down. Right now, we have the perfect opportunity to hold this vote, wait until the community has an opportunity to review this, and then make our recommendations. If this is truly a transparent and fact-finding plan, which seeks to lift up the voices of all in community, then that's exactly who we should hear from. We again stand with those that you've heard from thus far, and we're asking, and we are praying that you would hear us this morning, right? We pray that you would hear those in community who stand and sit on the margins of our society, whose voices are oftentimes muted and silenced. And for now, in this moment in time, you have an opportunity to do something great and brave and amazing, which is to listen and to honor those voices and allow the voices to speak in representation of themselves and not through you. That is a great opportunity that you have this morning. I would pray that you take advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Bouvier. I'm a big believer in the power of prayer, and I appreciate your prayers. Next, Robert, is it Prister? Mr. Prister, please come forward.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak and appreciate your time. My concerns are with a property on 12600 Greenfield. It deals with the sewerage part of, it's a commercial building. When the rates are pretty high for us, and we've been paying them, struggling along. Started with coronavirus, putting a big damper on business. And then the two floods, we store a lot of furniture there, and we've lost a very large amount of material. And then with business being real slow, it's put a big damper on it. And the price of this sewerage it just doesn't stop. And you know, when you're getting water bills the highest, you know, if you take a look at the water bill, I can give you the account number. I don't want to speak the number because it's very, very high. You know, $2,800 a month just for sewerage. The system that you're paying for, I mean, you're paying, there's no rain, there's nothing coming every month. You just get that sewerage bill every month. We need a break, you know, we need some help, you know. I hear that they're not gonna help with they're gonna deny the claims for this. I heard that is that happening? Like something happening with the claims getting denied? I don't know. The FEMA, all that help is, I don't know what to think of it, but get switched over to the taxes. They say they don't do it to the homes now, but they still do it for the business. It's hard to come up with all this money, we employ a lot of people in that area and a lot of people depend on us. It's gonna put us out of business.
What kind of business do you have, Mr. Prister?
I'm a representative for them. I work with them. It's a furniture business. Brand new furniture. There's a lot of furniture stored in there. It's a big building. It's 100,000 square foot. The bills, it got up to $100,000. That's, we're down, we got it paid down to 40, but we need a break. We can't, this is too much. And a lot of that water didn't go down the drains. When it rains really hard, we flood there, inside and out, but our insurance didn't cover it. We're looking, not a payment plan. We want a break, it's what we need. If that could be, and someone to work with that can say, hey, can work with this person and we get in the right direction. Maybe it just feels like, you're paying for something that ain't working right and ain't doing nothing. It's like the water bill's fine. That's not a problem. It's the sewerage. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is Sonia Brown on the Zoom.
Ms. Brown?
Yes, good morning, everyone. How is everyone? Well, good afternoon. How is everyone this afternoon? I thank you for this time to be able to speak. As we've all come here today, we all have one thing in common. We know that the water system has to change. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for anyone. And we all know that the city of Detroit have screwed over many of the residents here and have found loopholes and ways to get beyond what they ought to do that's right by the residents of Detroit. I speak as Sonia Brown, Auntie Nay, a resident of Detroit, a mother, and someone who has had their plight in this fight with the water situation in Detroit, working with Hydrate Detroit, as well as We the People, as well as just a resident. I'm having a difficult time dealing with any of this. I'm not even understanding why we're still dealing with water shutoffs when we've got enough about us to realize how important water is by going to third world countries digging in wells, and yet we're shutting the water off for our own residents here in Detroit. It makes no sense to me. Gary, you say that you're willing to work with the advocates, work with them. Your plan has a good merit in it, but it needs some tweaking. All they're asking you to do is work with them with these tweakings. Go back to the table. Start again at the drawing board. I feel that it ought to make sense to the people as much as it is made to corporations and others who have been able to be exempt from these large water bills that we have assumed here in Detroit. It's not hard. It's not rocket scientists. Those numbers that you come up with did not make sense. The average household family has 5 to 6 to 7 members in it. As it's been said previously, many of them have had to move in with the children, and the children have had to move back home with the family. So now you got grandparents, uncles, family members. You know those numbers don't make sense for the most of the lower income household residents in Detroit. That was proven by the massive shutoff before. My question too is, how many residents in Detroit stand to be shut off due to if the moratorium is removed? And if that number reflects higher than what this $10 million is that the government is offering, who's going to consume that other portion of that bill so we, the residents of Detroit, don't?
All right, thank you very much. Elena Harada. Elena. I'm sorry, ma'am, but people butcher my name too.
That's okay. I knew who you meant.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. I'm here as a community member and an individual. And of course, I want to also say that what I've been hearing this morning makes perfect sense to me from We the People and the water warriors involved. I'm going to take a second to say that I find it profoundly disturbing to pass by DTE and Campus Martius on my way here and see the water flowing as an aesthetic. There are people now being told we're going to be rationing our water in order to get this plan. This is a water rationing plan. The concern that I have is, what is the hurry? If you're saying that enrollment begins July 1st, I think today is June 28th, if I'm not mistaken. From June 28th to July 1st, we're going to roll out this plan to ask people to enroll in something that looks like a very good plan. I have to say to all of you, this feels really a lot like what it felt like when they were bringing casinos here. This is like a gamble that we're being told we can't lose, and we know that the House always wins. This is very disturbing, and I'm asking for this board to please consider what's being asked of you, a 30 to 45 day wait on this vote for public comment, and get it out all in the public as much as you possibly can. And also, the issue of an ombudsman is essential because Detroiters today have absolutely no avenue of redress. There has to be a place to take problems when we see that there are going to be inevitable problems with this. I also want to say that my own experience with Metro, with Wayne Metro, is the same as going to an abandoned building. Wayne Metro has been like dealing with an abandoned building. You can wait months and months for a callback. They don't have the capacity to do what you're asking them to do. They don't have the capacity. There has to be a remedy for that. And one more thing I want to say is that more and more Detroiters are gardening. You might want to provide rain barrels for us. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Lou Novak is our next speaker.
Mr. Novak?
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to address the board. I'm Louis Novak. I'm a customer of DWSD and a member of the People's Water Board Coalition, a group of over 36 community organizations who brought the first water affordability plan to this board over a decade ago. I'd like to thank DWSD and Mr. Brown for finally recognizing and addressing the difference between assistance and affordability. The assistance plans in the past have failed to address the issue, and it has only been the moratorium that has protected Detroit residents and DWSD customers access to their basic human right, the right to clean, affordable water and sanitation. This is a big step forward for the city of Detroit and DWSD, but there are some issues still. First of all, the data upon which this plan is based has not been made available. Without the actual written plan and the data used to formulate that plan, the promise of incorporating citizen and community input is not valid. One particular piece of data, or one particular result of that, is this assumption that there will only be 3 residents per household, and all these rates are based on that number. That there is no allowance for the number of residents in a customer household is going to result in water shutoffs. And as we know, only a moratorium will protect our residents from those shutoffs. The idea that 45 days of input will provide some measure of will sort of help validate this plan is also troublesome. It's going to be months and even years before the impact of this plan will be felt by the customers in the department. We need a continuous and structured mechanism for incorporating community input and for addressing that input in actionable changes to the plan as we move forward. I want to thank the board for this opportunity, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Novak. I understand Tommy Airy is here. Mr. Airy? Good morning, or good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks for letting me speak. I was out feeding that darn parking meter. So yeah, thanks for your patience. I'm a pastor and writer. I live in right on the edge of the Woodbridge and Core City neighborhoods. I've been here for about 8 years in Detroit and have had an opportunity to deliver water to a lot of victims of water shutoff in the city and listen to their stories. Their stories are compelling and heart-wrenching and horrifying. And I am pleased that the board is making this step. What my concern is that I mean, the people in my neighborhood, what they want is transparency and accountability, and they want democracy. And so what really befuddles me is that that the details of this plan won't go public until you actually vote for the plan. Now, before I moved to Detroit, I was a high school teacher for 18 years. I taught civics at a large public high school. And I'll tell you this, like I told the teenagers in my class, that's not democracy. That's not democracy. Democracy is allowing the public to see the details of the plan. And so what I urge you to do is to take 45 days and to get the details of this plan out to the city and let the community weigh them and give full input on this thing and then move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Aaron Mccarty on Zoom.
Ms. McCarty?
Aaron McCarty, I believe it's Mr.
Gentlemen. Mr. McCarty?
Unmute yourself, sir. We'll go to the next speaker. Last three numbers of the phone are 662. You can unmute yourself and speak.
You are unmuted. You could.
Hello?
You are unmuted. Hello?
Yes, you're unmuted now.
You're unmuted now.
Okay, now we have two people. All right.
This is Reverend McCarthy on here.
Okay.
Reverend McCartney, how are you, sir?
Just a moment, just a moment, just a moment. The person who's last four, okay, they muted her. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to speak to you. And thank you. And I'd like to say that you are heading in the right direction. And on behalf of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Detroit chapter of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, I'd like to say, because of your policies were made by humans, and I need you to listen at me here because these people are really saying something that's really, really relevant. They're made by humans that they have the potential for errors. Now, I would ask you, have you guys had an opportunity to view the World Order Health Order particular, they have a policy called the Peculiar Principles, which states that the possibility of something that may come up, especially environmental in the future, that may have harm that needs to be reviewed. I would ask, have you guys had a chance to review the peculiar principles of the World Health Order? Because it states specifically that we should take steps before we move forward with plans that we are unsure of. And you've indicated that you would be willing to readjust your program in 2024, which suggests to me and the rest of us on here that it has potential for irreversible harm to the community. So I'm not going to stay on here long because the people are saying the right thing. I think the board should consider holding off making a decision on this right now. If you have any kind of empathy and you really love the city of Detroit, you would hold off and allow the people to become involved in making this decision, Mr. Brown, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Reverend. May I call Nicole Hill? Good afternoon, Ms. Hill.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak. First, I want to say thank you, Mr. Brown, for letting us know as advocates that we're doing the right thing, because you literally quoted our talking points verbatim. We are well aware that the People's Water Board was discluded from being in these talks because we have an active ongoing lawsuit against you for discrimination against African-American residents in the city surrounding the water shutoffs. But I'm also standing here as a voice of directly impacted residents of the city. We cannot accept a program blindly without seeing it. I think it should be viewed by members of the community, activists, and advocates for water justice. We cannot have a block tiered program. You have steadily increased rates and placed costs on the backs of the ratepayers, and neglected to acknowledge that due to the economic crunch that is bordering on being an economic collapse and the pandemic, that there are many families who are already low income and are now becoming multiple families under one roof. Therefore, their water usage would be increased, and they may not fall under that 4,500 gallon tier that you have despite their low income status. We have already had a plan. It was drawn up and tried to be implemented in the city, as some of my colleagues have said early on. The city refused to implement the program when we brought it back to their attention as well. And what we need is for that plan to be implemented along with discussions with the community prior to the acceptance of any plan that you're putting in place, so that we can review it and uplift the positive points in it and bring attention to the points in that program that don't serve our community. The majority of ratepayers should have the option to do that. I ask that you give at least 45 days for community activists and experts to review this plan and offer concrete recommendations, as well as have an active hand in formulation of a community-partnered income-based plan and improving the said existing plan that you have in place. Federal funds were given to allocate relief for citizens and repair an aging and overdue infrastructure. And while you may see increases as modest, in your words verbatim, those are your standards and not the standards of the community that you claim to serve. We must have a true and equitable water affordability plan in place, not a tiered plan. You cannot continue to jeopardize households by doing things like creating shut-off statuses.
Ms. Hill, your time's expired.
Thank you. I just ask that you, in closing, I just would like to say the ways of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is, last three numbers of the phone are 662. Please unmute yourself.
Muted.
The person is unmuted, but we can't unmute here. They're speaking.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Can you tell us your name,
Okay,
please?
sorry. My name is Julia Sawson. I'm a volunteer with We the People of Detroit since August 2016. And I'd just like to uplift the many requests that the board grants adequate time and access for the Detroit community to review and provide input to this affordability plan. And also that there's transparency and accountability around incorporating that input. I want to uplift Ms. Petty's point that decades of mistrust need to be carefully and thoughtfully repaired between Detroiters and the water department. and that building this Lifeline plan in true partnership with groups like People's Water Board, We the People of Detroit, Hydrate Detroit, and et cetera, is one step towards this. I hear the argument that RAP enrollees could receive some immediate fee relief, but there are very many other crucial details that need to be understood before approval so that the most Detroiters can get a just deal. And these have been mentioned before, like, is this a permanent program? What about low-income customers with leaky pipes? What about people who aren't captured by the data, like multifamily households and slumlord situations? So I hope that this request is heard and granted, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, may I call Emily Kotick? Good afternoon, Ms. Kotick.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the board for your time. My name is Emily Kudel, and I'm a Detroiter, professor of architecture at Lawrence Tech University and a member of We the People of Detroit. Having access to safe, affordable water is critical for public health. Research has shown that water shutoff moratoria lowered COVID-19 cases and deaths across the United States. Dwsd has shut off over 170,000 households in the past decade. Hundreds of thousands of people have been affected by shutoffs. When COVID hit, almost 10,000 households were shut off by the city of Detroit. And we know that Detroit was devastated in the early days of COVID. Given how critically important water access, affordable, safe water access is for public health, it is absolutely shameful that the water department is trying to push through a vote on this plan with no community accountability. This public comment period after the vote, or as you called it, a 45-day cooling off period, does not cut it. That does not count as authentic community engagement. And instead, you're claiming community buy-in where it doesn't exist. We have seen ineffective, underfunded assistance plan after ineffective, underfunded assistance plan come out of this water department. The lack of transparency and accountability in this process is shameful. Given the issues that people have raised today with the volume-based rates and with inadequate funding, there are serious issues that need to be addressed and vetted by community advocates. Water is a public trust and a human right, and we must have a democratic process in the development of a water affordability plan for Detroit. So I echo the voices of the water advocates here today. The Board of Water Commissioners must not vote on this plan until after public review and comment and after these concerns have been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Nadia Gaber or Gaber on Zoom.
Ms.
Thank
Gaber?
you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Nadia Gaber. I'm a member of We the People of Detroit's community.
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Thank you. Kudel just described. We have documented a number of serious health impacts of water unaffordability, including skin and stomach infections, mental health impacts, and of course, the uneven distribution of COVID in neighborhoods with high shutoffs. Though this pandemic has cooled off, it could continue to mutate, including beyond this one-year pilot. And that doesn't touch many of the hardships and health threats as many of the residents here have described. Water is essential for health and life. It is a human right and should be held as a public trust. Does this plan also make sewer rates affordable on an income basis? Will there be any coordination with the Department of Public Health and cooperation and full transparency with community and university-based researchers to study the health impacts of this plan as a metric of its efficacy and potentially a benchmark of success for national advocacy, attesting to the vital need for water affordability? Will there be support to amend the city charter to declare a right to water for all Detroit residents as was defeated in Proposal P?
I also want to join those who have spoken to asking that the board not vote on this plan until the community has had a full chance to review it and until some ongoing basis for community engagement, feedback, and change has been established in the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Dr. Garber? Okay, Paul Jackson? Mr. Jackson, are you here? All right, why don't we call, that is the last name I have on our list. Let's go to our virtual participants.
Mr. Chair, the next person to speak is Beverly Hilton.
Ms. Hilton?
Ms. Hilton, please unmute yourself. Okay, we'll go to the next speaker on Zoom. Last three numbers of the phone are 676. You may unmute yourself. Last three numbers, 676 of the phone number.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, how are you? Can you tell us your name,
I'm
please?
Tiffany Ashley. Yes, I'm Tiffany Ashley Bell, the founder and executive director of an organization called the Human Utility, also known as the Detroit Water Project. Hold on right quick. We have literally paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in water bills for Detroiters over the last several years, many of whom were sent to us by Detroit Water Department itself and other organizations in that room. We have not been able to help everybody, but I wanted to say that more time should be taken, as other advocates have said, to review this plan. DWSD has not been transparent in this process, like other people have said. We are in contact with your department all the time, and yet we've not been included in any of the conversations, despite literally, like I said, paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in water bills. If you don't believe us, we have the receipts, mostly on our website as well. And even in the time of day that this meeting is being held, doesn't make it accessible to the vast majority of people who need to be here and hear about it. So we really question how transparent and open do you actually want to be? What's the point of holding this if you come to people and we don't have any sense of what your plans are? For example, what happens to people who owe thousands of dollars worth of water bill debt? We have people in our system who owe anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 that they partially expect us to help them with. And you yourself at DWSD have sent us people expecting us to contribute to $5,000 water bills without any plan yourselves to alleviate any of that debt. And again, when it comes to the numbers that are being given as far as the rates that people have to pay, how are those numbers determined? How do you account for economic conditions like inflation? Many people are also unemployed, and they've been chronically unemployed. They've been unemployed since we've been doing this work since 2014 in some cases, because they have disabilities, they're elderly, they've got cancer. How do your plans account for people like that? And we also see people in our program who have massive DTE bills. So they're battling two different kinds of utility debt. What are you doing for those people? We get asked for help all the time, even with electricity bills. And we've seen your rates go up year after year, the entire time we've been doing this work. What happens with people after the first year, the second year? How do these numbers adjust for that? And since we don't know any of these things, it really would make sense for you all to hold off on approving and voting for this. It just doesn't make sense to come to people and say you're doing this work, but nobody who's been doing this work on our own knows what you're actually doing and what you're voting for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, there are two callers who have the moniker, "We the People of Detroit." So the first person can go who's on the chat list, or I mean the participant list. I'm not sure who it is.
All right, first person who is signed in on We the People Detroit. You can unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hello. Your name, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Monica Lewis Patrick. I'm the president and CEO of We the People of Detroit. Has my time started, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. My name is Monica Lewis Patrick. I not only serve the people with We the People of Detroit, but I also serve as the national co-chair for water affordability under the White House Council on Environmental Quality. I not only serve there, I serve as the co-chair along with Sylvia Arduino as the co-chair of the Water Committee for the Michigan Advisory Council on Environmental Justice. We have not only been working with coalition groups here in Detroit and in the state of Michigan, but all across this great nation to advocate for water affordability. I am deeply disturbed by the fact that we have pleaded and we have asked on numerous occasions for the water department to come to the community in transparency and with accountability to truly move a true water affordability policy forward for the community. I would educate the community that there is a deep difference between assistance and affordability. What Mr. Brown seems to be offering is a patch quilt of some form of an assistance program, which does not have longevity. We can only get longevity through water affordability. I am also willing to lend to this body the expertise of not only the Community Research Collective, but also the fact that we have a deep relationship with the US EPA and also with the Department of Health and Human Services. I have reached out to my congressional leaders to ask them to also reach out to those departments to ask them to hold off on any support of any policy that this body would move forward without the necessary transparency that's being requested and required by the community. And I appreciate everyone that has worked tirelessly now for almost a quarter of a century, advocating for the people of Detroit to get what they just reasonably deserve, which is clean, safe, and affordable water. When Mr. Brown and this body is willing to move forward with integrity and transparency and accountability, I can assure you, as the president and CEO of We the People of Detroit, we stand willing and ready to work in true collaboration to bring forth a worthy policy for the people of Detroit. Thank you so much for my time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is James Perkinson.
Mr.
Yes,
Perkinson?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm a 35-year Eastside Detroiter, professor at Ecumenical Theological Seminary on Woodward Avenue, and have worked with both We the People of Detroit and People's Water Board for the last 8 years in advocating for affordability. I've also suffered the flooding like tens of thousands of other Detroiters in recent years. And I mostly want to reiterate what other people have been saying. You all are late by 8 years since I've been involved in recognizing that affordability is a better option than the assistance that has been put in place, and by more than 9 years since the time before I got involved. I would think you would want to listen to people who had it right long before you and pay attention to the need to get the details right, as has already been said. So I'm saying wait 45 days and work with community people as well as residents to come up with the accountability structure that will keep this from happening again in the future. We are faced into a draconian situation with climate change and with water in particular. The emergency is not going to go away. We live in a supposed democracy, although it's really unclear how far we have ever realized that. But democracy means people power. It means people who are ordinary citizens actually having input. To use the word, to talk about community input, to talk about having a public hearing without giving people time and opportunity to engage in back and forth, to assimilate the details of what's being talked about, is more of the same use of language to cover over what is not actually being offered. So I would simply say, please listen, please stop, take in the input that's being offered you by people who have a lot of on the ground expertise, and go forward attempting really to realize something democratic rather than an imposition top down from experts. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Mr. Chair, our last speaker is from We the People of Detroit.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Victoria Loom with We the People of Detroit. I'm the policy manager with the organization. I want to first recognize all the work that's been done to make water affordable in Detroit by the people and organizations for days before me. But this afternoon, I simply want to add my voice to the record in echoing those for this pause, this comment period, pre-vote comment period for 45 days. And that's my, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the commissioners? All right, hearing none, we will close public comment. And with regard to our agenda, we will move on to item 12, new business, and that is the proposed schedule of water rates. Commissioners, I should note that we've had 2 sessions of public hearings with regard to these rates. We reviewed them this morning. We know that we only control 21% of our budget, and we estimate that under this new rate structure, about 78% of our residents will actually see a savings, in some instances, a small savings, but a small savings is always better than any kind of increase. Mr. Director, I don't know if you want to say anything else?
I certainly want to indicate that, as you know, normally we would have implemented the new rates on July 1st. And we're proposing that the new rates won't be implemented until December 1st. And of course, they won't hit the bills in the city of Detroit until September 1st. So instead of getting 12 months of the increase, we're already only getting 11. And so we really need to get the rates approved. And of course, what we're proposing by changing the RAP program to an affordability program, there's nothing that stops us from having the discussions. I wholeheartedly agree with just about everything that's been said with regards to community input and amending the program as necessary. But we need to approve the rates or risk building more bad debt that just gets passed into next year's rates and negatively affects the very people that we're trying to help, essentially. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chair.
Commissioners, would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Kinlock.
Yes, Mr. Chair, upon recommendation of Ishmael Rahman, Chief Financial Officer of the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department, the Board of Water Commissioner moved that the Board of Water Commissioners approve the proposed schedule of Detroit retail water and sewage charges consistent with the fiscal year 2022-23 revenue requirement and water and sewer system budget approved by the Board of Water Commissioners on March 16, 2022, and also authorize the director to take such other action as may be necessary to accomplish the intent of this vote.
Support.
All right, it's been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Commissioner Garcia.
I understand that we need to move forward in this, but I also want to make sure that the community, Mr. Director, continues to have dialogue. So as we move forward, that they have the opportunity to bring back their recommendations, things that may work and may not work, definitely the multi-unit issues that some people would have problems with. And I mentioned that before, people that have up to 10 people living in their homes because of the rental issues right now that are going on in so many communities. So I really want to support this, but I also want to make sure that that dialogue continues. You may not like what they have to say, but I think it's important to hear them.
We're
So
going
I
to deal
think-
with the Lifeline plan next.
That's the rate. That's the rate.
This is just the rates.
Okay, bring it back.
All
All right, sorry.
All right, any other questions about the rate schedule? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Mr.
please-
Chair.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but we have to do a roll call vote for this item.
okay, we're going to take a look at that, but let's call the roll.
Einhauser?
Yes.
Vice Chair Blackman? Yes. Commissioner Garcia? Commissioner Kenlock?
Yes.
Commissioner Forte?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
All right, that matter is adopted. Now let's move to item B with regard to the approval of the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department's pilot lifelong plan for water affordability. I've not said anything, but I would like to now. First of all, I agree with whoever said this is an exciting day. Second of all, I want to congratulate a group that I've heard accurately described as the water warriors in the city of Detroit. We're a revenue department and we have to pay our bills based on the money that comes in. And this is the first time we've looked at a realistic plan of using other than ratepayers' money to provide fairness, more fairness in our rates. I also agree the plan is not perfect. I don't know if there is a perfect plan. I suspect there's a better plan, but the plan is not perfect. With regard to community engagement, we're doing it and we're going to continue to do it. And well, I'm going to talk to you about what's the hurry. We are here every single month and we are open to input that you may have. And I know we're going to change this plan. We're going to make changes to it. We're going to improve it. And all the good ideas don't have to come in 45 days. They won't come in 45 days. There will be considerations going forward. Somebody said if we vote on this today, the horse is out of the barn. That's not true. The horse is right here and we're going to be able to make changes as we see fit.
The chair.
And I respectfully believe the over 70% of our ratepayers who are going to get relief in their rates next month don't want us to wait. So we're taking an important first step. We are here every single month. As the director has said, there are going to be workshops in the community and we're all ears. Commissioner Kinlock.
Mr. Chair, upon recommendation of Director Gary Brown and Chief Financial Officer Ishakar Rahman, I move that the Board of Water Commissioners for the City of Detroit Water and Sewage Department hereby approves the pilot Lifeline plan for water affordability and authorizes the director to take such other action as may be necessary to accomplish the intent of this vote.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Commissioner Kinlock? No? Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Do we need to take a roll? We don't need to take a roll call vote. Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And that is adopted, subject to amending whenever it's appropriate for us to amend it. And ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate all the public comment that we've got. It's an important new first step for us. but we're
Mr.
not done.
Mr. Director, and also to Mr. Chairman, it is important for us to understand that this is just a first start. This is a pilot. Is a pilot. Is an opportunity for us to actually see this program be implemented. And I can speak to myself, and I know all of us who are the board, who are responsible for making changes to this policy. We're going to listen to the community, and we're going to act accordingly if we see that there needs to be some tweaks there. We also need to realize that we're all working for the same purpose, and that's to help citizens. We have to all work together and look to a permanent funding source. We shouldn't be, fighting on an issue that we've all been trying to address for the past 10 years. This is going to bring immediate relief to thousands of residents who are in need of help right now. But we need to all be working together to find, like I said, a permanent funding source, and we should be working together on that right now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Forte.
Yeah, I just want to say I couldn't agree with Commissioner Kinlock more. It's a start, it's a pilot. I think all of our ears have been open and will continue to be open. I mean, I know each of these commissioners and what they value and valuing the community. And I can't wait to hear the better idea, the more perfecting idea for this plan. But we got to start somewhere. And if we put it out for 45 days, we're going to need another 45 days. And then we'll need another 90 on top of that. And we won't have a plan and we won't be providing relief.
Commissioner Blackman.
Just want to reiterate that the board has the responsibility, if they see fit, to amend the plan going forward. I think it's extremely important that this is not cast in concrete or stone, whatever quote you want to use, that we have that ability as we gain additional information. If there is a need, we will make adjustments. Our whole goal here is to do something that helps our low-income customers. That's our only goal. And then, of course, to help the next tier of customers who may not meet those financial guidelines, but also need some assistance. And that's why we have the 10-30-50 plan. So we want to make sure that, and then we have an agency that is able to handle that. But we do still have customer service. We have customer service representatives who can help customers achieve this goal for themselves. So I don't want people to forget that we have our own internal mechanism to make sure that customers get the greatest benefit from what it is we have to offer.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to make one other comment. The one thing that needles at me is the number of our customers who don't reach out for help. So if there is a way that we can reach out to them,
yes,
so that they can be lifted up for help, I think we need to explore that as hard as we can.
I just want to say that if the charter wanted this board to be the oversight, not necessarily an ombudsman, but I do want to make the point that we work very closely with the ombudsman's office. They have a direct connection to my office, and we address any of their issues as quickly as humanly possible.
Well, and I also think, I speak for all 7 of us, the public has 7 ombudspersons.
Yeah.
I call all of them all the time.
All of us are willing to meet, available and willing to meet. And we're talking to an empty room now. But I'm confident that the data is going to be supplied. We may disagree on what the data says, but we're not going to disagree on the data itself. We're going to be transparent with that. So I think it's a great day. In fact,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Davis.
When you're done, I just wanted to make one quick. Okay. I've, in concurrence with what all of those who have come forward from the public have said, and well, most of it, I shouldn't say all of it, but we cannot allow the perfect to be the enemy of the very good.
Well.
Mhm.
Amen.
And we can make it better.
Yes.
And we will.
We will.
Okay. Any other comments? I don't know if, why don't we go to director's comments? I think he's commented out.
Yeah, I'm done.
Commissioners' comments by the chair. Are there any other matters to come before our board today? Hearing none, then a motion to adjourn is in
Adjournment.
order. It's been moved and supported. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And we stand adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.